Welcome, everybody. I'm going to start with introductions. First, I'm Christy Galzarano with Hilton Garden and Cocoa Beach and chair of the sports committee. And then I guess we'll start with Joanna.
Oh, yeah.
And a reminder to turn your microphones on and talk into them.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm sorry. My name is Joanna Brooks. I'm with the TDC staff. Is that okay?
Hi, I'm Chelsea Parker. I'm with Home 2 Suites in Vieira.
Lynn Mims, instructor in the College of Business, Florida Tech.
Peter Canis with Tourism Development Office.
Terry Parks, Sports Commissioner.
Fred Poppy, City of Palm Bay.
Jamie Tajero, General Manager, Best Western Days Inn, Cocoa Beach.
Angela Essing, Tourism Development Office. And Jake, I'll unmute you.
Jake Hornbacher, USSSA.
Great. First order of business, we just need to, I need a motion to allow Jake Hornbacher to vote remotely. Your motion.
Motion to allow Jake to vote remotely for today's meeting.
Your second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Okay, motion carries. Jake can vote remotely. All right, first, the next item of business is we just need an approval of the agenda. Everybody should have received it, I believe via email, and you have it in your packet. I just need a motion to approve the agenda.
Can I just confirm that my name is spelled Lynnemims, just to make sure that it's consistent the way through?
Yeah.
Oh, no problem.
We gave you an extra M, but we spelled your E. Sorry.
That's okay. Just want to make sure.
Noted.
Yeah.
Okay,
Correct me if I'm correct.
So this is also a very minor point considering it was misspelled on my driver's license for many years. But on the placard, it's actually Jaime instead of Jamie, but it's okay. Just throwing it out there. They spelled correctly in the minutes though. That was done correctly.
so Jamie needs a new name tag.
Yeah,
Okay.
we will work on that.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Fred Poppy, motion to approve.
There's a second?
Second,
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nobody opposed, motion carries. Okay, next, approval of the minutes. Again, you should have received the minutes and hopefully read through them. Just need a motion to approve the minutes from the March 28th meeting.
motion to approve minutes as presented.
Second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No opposed, motion carries. All right, next, room night calculations, Terry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I'll ask everyone to turn to page number 8 in their packets, please. Now, this conversation is more along, has more to do with the events that are individually based, like running marathons and whatnot. I've spoken to a few destinations and got some pretty good feedback, really good feedback actually, about how they do theirs, but I'll get into that later on. Currently, if you look at your page number 8, we use what is called formula number 1. It's where we take the number of days of a particular event, multiply that by the number of participants, and then divide that by 1.7. We have a current reimbursement going on right now. We have an event that had 1,300, 1,400 some odd participants from outside of 75 miles. So what we want to have more discussion about, we want to know two things actually. we'll get to the formula later on, but first and foremost, we need to know which people, what information do we need in order to use a list? The list that I have right now consists of an origin, it's the city, the state, and the zip code, and then the distance from Brevard County, Florida. So that's what I'm using right now. The destinations that I spoke with, the one in particular was St. Pete Clearwater. That's all that they use. The other ones, I spoke with Treasure Coast. They don't need the names. They don't need the physical addresses. As long as they have an idea of where each participant is coming from, that's reliable enough for them. So my first question, Madam Chair, is for discussion is what pertinent information should we be supplying on all of our participation registrants list in order to use for our travel room nights calculations?
Any discussion?
And
A couple thoughts I had going through, was, it says how many are from out of county. That doesn't do much for me because out of county would be easily drivable.
Right.
I don't think from a room night standpoint that makes any difference. I do think distance does. So when I was voting, that was just like, well, how far out of county? Because if it's Orlando, they probably aren't staying. Or, Volusia or Indian River. The one thought.
Yeah, and for the USSSA formula, 75 miles came up, but from a number of other sports commissions and the state Florida Sports Foundation at the state level. And when you look at 75 miles, it's just on the other side of Orlando. So like if you're from Lakeland, that's going to be closer to the 75 miles. But if you're from Seminole County, Orange County, Osceola County, no, you're inside of that 75 miles.
I also think it might need to be different for a 1-day event versus a 4-day event. Because if it's 4 days and they're coming from Lakeland, they'll probably stay. If it's I drive over some place at St. Leo. I drive to St. Leo day trip, 2.5 hours because it's 1 day.
Right.
So I think maybe that should be somehow in that formula.
Okay.
I think the challenge is trying to come up with a consistent standard that can be applied to all these different events. And as we know, even this packet, we have robotic events, we have marathons, which is great. There's a diversity of events here, but I would be in favor of something with 100-mile distance qualifying. I'd almost be interested in taking that number and seeing if we can look at previous events and doing the math that way to see what the impact would have been if we utilized that formula. So because right now we're only asking out of county. I don't know if we have that that are required to provide a participant list with zip code on there.
Okay. And speaking of the participant list, would the city, state, and zip code, would that suffice? Or would you want name, address, and
I don't think we need, address. I just think, name. I don't think that's too invasive if we ask their name. It would be even better if they could tell us the number of individuals traveling with them, so then we can avoid the 1.7, 2.2 calculation. I do think we need to go to the higher 2.2. I think 1.7 is an underrepresentation of it. But yes, I think name, city, state, and zip code. That's bare minimum.
I agree.
on,
On getting at least the name and the city and state. I feel like if you're getting the address, it'll become more of a nuisance and you may have people just not want to participate.
and the pushback, I'm pretty sure is from, I'm thinking, because he asked me, why do you want this information? So the first thing I thought was marketing. He thinks that we're going to take his list or sell the list or something like that, but I'll have a conversation with him about that. And to make it easier, once each of our grant recipients are awarded by the Board of County Commissioners, I think I will take it upon myself, because there is an attachment in our packet that they should all have with what's needed on the lodging report. And I need to let them know very clearly that this is a stipulation of receiving your reimbursement. If we do not have this verifiable data, then you run the risk of forfeiting all funds. Would that be fair to say?
And zip codes, they just cover too broad of a spectrum to get just the name and the zip code. Especially if we push it to 100 miles out, would that be more feasible to just do a name and a zip code? Or is that too broad of a, just considering how broad of a scope that'd be? But if we pushed it out, it could even be simpler.
And I think it also would assuage concerns about, direct marketing. We don't have their address. We can't send them a
Right.
flyer. We don't have their email address. So there's no, email blast that we could do. So it's perhaps, to your point, name, number of individuals traveling,
Right.
and then
How many are in your
zip code.
party?
How many in your party?
Where
So
you, what's your zip code?
Yeah.
You might
that's it.
get more data just because it's even simpler.
those three things.
Right. And I could spit that out in passing.
Right. And what I'll also suggest to the event organizers is it'd be a good idea to include this in your registration materials, just like a shirt size or so on and so forth. This include, how many are in your traveling party, lodging, accommodations. It's quite simple, to be honest with you.
It may even be simpler instead of choosing a mile radius for us to just predetermine the zip codes that don't count. Because there's far fewer of those when you're just taking that into consideration. Just throwing that out there.
So Terry, this is something you're gonna come back to us with and we vote on it, or you want us to vote on it today on what the changes are?
Some
I-
research might be
I
necessary.
need to do some research on that.
We'll push that to our next meeting.
Okay.
All right, then number 3, Terry again. Star of the show.
Okay, approval and acceptance of fiscal year 23-24 sports grant cycle number 1 applications. So we're gonna go to page 9. And this is our cover sheet with all the pertinent information, the event name, event organizer, amount requested, dates, history of awards, projected room nights, estimated out-of-county attendance, event length, and the estimated economic impact. If you look at the very bottom of your spreadsheet, you'll see the estimated economic impact as a formula that we've used to calculate those numbers in the final column of your spreadsheet. Below, you have the funding levels as well as the funds available and expended through this grant cycle, and what's available for the next grant cycle. I am going to ask, so for the approval and acceptance of the applications, I guess you all will have to make a motion to approve the 11 applications that came in, and then we'll move on to the review and awards is on the next page.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve all the applications that came in. First,
Motion to approve all the applications.
Lynn made a motion. Is there a second?
Chelsea Parker, second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nope, motion carries. And then B,
Okay, if you go to page 10, you have the scores individually for each of our applicants. Based on the trim mean, meaning that we took out the highest and lowest scores and then average what was left. Each of them qualified with above a 70. And I wrote down 2 scenarios. The first one is the grant amount requested and then the grant amount based on their score, where we actually take the percentage that they scored and calculate that against their request and come up with a final award number. And then the second group of information, the rooms projected and grant award based on $15 per room, those are strictly hypothetical. That was, since we had discussion about that during our last meeting, I thought it would be fair for everyone to see what those numbers would look like should we adopt that system going forward. So I'll let everyone review all 11 applicants. There's again, the top row is for the grant amount requested, and then the score, the amount based on the score is below that.
Madam Chair, just one correction for just Terry to note. We had said last time, and this will go to the TDC and the board, that the maximum was 25,000. So for Beach and Board Fest, it says 30,000, but that it would be 25,000 would be the max there for that one. But again, that's under the new guidelines. So, you know, we're still working under the previous set of guidelines, which are the top numbers that Terry described.
And I'm assuming we typically don't give them more than they're requesting, correct?
Yeah, and you know, when it says requested, it's really based on, if you look on the previous page, it's really based on the previous guidelines that kind of give you guidance as to, you know, 200 is up to 5,000, 201 to 500 is 5,001 to 7,500, et cetera. So it's kind of based on that. It's not that they're asking for an amount of money. That's just what is built into the guidelines. And the committee has discretion and has used discretion in the past to adjust that, you know, based on their scoring.
So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go one by one, starting with the Columbia Classic and move all the way to the right and until we finish each of these applicants. Columbia Classic asked for $5,000. Their trend mean was 79%. So we take that and they came up with $3,950.
Any discussion on this? I can start. I thought it was a strong event. I thought it actually had the room nights because they're coming from so many different schools all around. So I just thought it had a little more teeth than some of the other might. Any other thoughts on the Columbia Classic?
I would agree with it too, for the same reason, the out of town is guaranteed.
Right,
They're
exactly,
already coming from, you know, down the road.
exactly. So we need a motion. We have to approve each one of these, correct? Terry?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair.
So is there any other discussion before someone makes a motion on this one, on Columbia Classic?
When we're approving the grant amount requested or the grant award based on the score? Or we need to talk about that first?
I think that's a discussion point for the committee because, like I said, in the past, like the last 3 years, the committee's always adjusted the amount requested based on the score. But this committee's a new committee. You guys can, you know, change that.
So I guess first things first, just from overall discussion, what do you think about doing it as a percentage? Reducing it based on the score? Do you think that's fair if we continue to do what they've done in the past, or do we just leave the number that they requested as long as it's in the minimum room nights guidelines, which they all are?
What's the amount of money that we've set aside for cycle number 1? Is it 100? So the request amount is 113,000. How much we've?
Yeah, we had 100, we have 220 for both cycles, so we should be fine. I would say we should be fine with that. We don't know yet what cycle 2 will bring, but if it brings a similar amount, I think we'll be very, very close to that budget. Plus we get reimbursed for some of this, so we're expecting somewhere in the 30,000-40,000 range to come back to us, so we should really be in good shape.
Just a couple of things I wanted to say. I feel that the scoring, to base it purely on the scoring, some of the questions there are open to a lot of subjectivity, you know, based on interpretation of what you think as a scorer. So I'm a bit uncomfortable with that, to base it on that premise. So I think that we should, you know, try and introduce a little bit more objectivity if we can. And the other thing is that I think that when we're making the award, as long as from a committee member, I feel comfortable in the robustness of the verification and the checking. That's an important part of it. So because, and you know, to be fair, anybody can fill out a spreadsheet and put numbers on them. I feel that, you know, to agree something in principle is fine, but I would like to see make sure that I felt comfortable that the numbers are truly verified.
So it's more important. So for instance, Columbia Classic, what you're saying is, just make sure I understand what you're saying. The grant amount requested is 5,000. And if we don't take what it's based on the score, we leave it at 5,000. It'll only be 5,000 if they verify their numbers at the end of the day.
Correct.
So it could drop.
Which has always been that way, regardless of whether based on score or not.
Okay, so do you want to make a motion to not do the grant based on score?
Well, I'd like to hear what other people think.
I mean, they are trusting our group to make these decisions.
Now, I'm trying to come up with a rationale for why the scoring system is more equitable or more suitable. I'm trying to, if it's a question about funding, whether do we have enough funds, then the scoring base seems appropriate. But we feel fairly confident that we have enough and what we're going to get back from the Florida Sports Foundation.
Correct.
So if that's the case, then I'm more inclined, at least for this cycle, or perhaps the cycle number 2, to give them what they're asking for if they qualify.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, a lot of my scoring was heavily influenced by the amount of media, and because I was really focused in on the amount of marketing that they had in their budget and the amount of media. So even though I might know, because it listed on their applications how many outsourced media are going to come to each event. So even though I might know an event might sell out, they only had 1 or 2 medias listed versus others with fewer rooms had a lot more media. And a lot of what we're giving is supposed to be for marketing. So my scoring was heavily skewed by how much our name, our area, the Space Coast was going to be visible to the public. So I don't know. And whereas some others might have just saw the number of rooms. So let's do this, you know. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you, where just because all of us have made up our own minds on how we're going to score it based off of, you know, one of the questions on the score is how unique is this event? Or I'm trying to think of the exact verbiage, but one of the scoring is, you know, is this more unique or something like that? And that's just it's so subject to opinion. So I almost feel like the applicant it's fair to the applicant if we base it off of the number of rooms and just go that route.
So Chelsea, it's does the event possess any unique qualities that will create publicity opportunities?
And that's just your opinion.
Yeah, and I think I'm all for a more objective and empirical approach, but then if that was the case, then it would be a matter of these are the number of room nights generated, either you do or don't, and then really don't need a board or a council to advise, right? I think the element of subjectivity, our personal experiences or our perception of events, that's where the utility of having a committee like this is, that we provide that our insight and we come from it from different perspectives, what we value. So whether it's marketing initiatives, the ability to generate, you know, television coverage, or for me, it might be more room nights. So I do agree that there is a great deal of interpretation on these questions. And sometimes, you know, what constitutes an 8 or a 7, I feel like I'm splitting hairs here.
Mhm.
But I guess that's why we're here in a way. So I don't
I guess, just to sum it up, I guess just to be more clear, I think that my vote would go towards basing it off the number of rooms.
And yeah, I would second that as well. I do have one question, Peter. If, for example, an organizer receives or reaches 80% of the room nights, their grant money is that they'll get, it's prorated essentially, they'll get 80%.
Correct.
So
So if they
It-
don't make, if they
it-
say, I have, we promise 1,000 rooms and they only deliver 800, then they get 80% of whatever the grant award was. And so just a thought, since you guys already had kind of voted on this at the last meeting, why not use the $15 a room number? And use that as your guidance? Then at least it's fair across the board. And if they don't deliver, they don't get the full amount.
So looking at that, it's a pretty, so we would give more to Columbia Classic,
Right, they'd actually get a little bit more.
quite a bit less, we give less to the Gateway,
Right.
more to softball, magazine, spring training. So a couple questions out there.
I would not give them more money.
Thank you, Jay.
So if they don't ask for it, don't give it to them.
I kind of agree with
I,
you.
I wouldn't give anyone more money than what they're asking for, to be honest with you. I mean, that's just how I see it. I mean, if they're asking for the money and we give them, the money they're asking for and they over deliver, then good. We'll see it next year, and we'll work something out. But until then, I don't think we should be overpaying anybody more than what they ask for. That's just my opinion.
So with that being said, there's two things kind of on the table. The whole grant score, the grant award based on score. We probably need to vote on if we do or don't do that, but I need a motion. Sounds, from what I hear, you all don't want to do the grant award based on score. 1, 2, 3, is that what I'm hearing? Do you want to, like, I need a motion. To not agree? To not consider the grant award based on score.
Okay,
You're great. You're great.
so motion to award grant funds based upon amount requested rather than based on score.
Is there a second?
Chelsea Parker second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, my question would be then are we just basing it off our opinions then? Or like what are we basing it off of then if we're not going to go off of our score sheet?
One would be that we're actually gonna, because they had to get a 70 to actually get a grant.
Is pre-qualified.
So yeah, yeah, right, Chelsea is right, more of a pre-qualification. Right.
And then we would still need to vote, since we're not doing it based off of our score. Does that means we're basing it off of the $15 per room? Is that where we're defaulting? No.
Or in this case, it would be on the amount requested,
If
that
we're-
first line.
if we're not doing a rating system and we're doing it purely on what the room nights are, I mean, that can be done as a staff function. There's no reason to have this committee at that point.
Well,
The reason we're doing this is we all have different experiences and everything, and we're using our experiences. And this stuff is not any one person doesn't influence this. It's all averaged out. They usually take out the high and the low. And so the process is there for a reason. I mean, if we're not gonna score, I mean, everything we do, even when you're hiring people, right, there's some degree of subjectivity to it. Not everything can be objective. So to me, if we're not gonna have the scoring and it's just gonna be, they ask for this many room nights and thus they get this amount, what are we voting on? What are we deciding at that point?
so
It's just deciding anything.
yeah, I don't want to put words in Jake's mouth, but I think what the point he was making is this: if we've already pre-qualified all of these, they've all reached the 70% threshold, right? What's the point of us deliberating upon each individual one since they've all received the award? So Chelsea's point, we're pre-qualifying them. Once they reach the 70% threshold, they're in. At that point, then we need to determine how the funds are going to be allocated, whether it's based on room nights, a percentage, or what they've requested.
I think I don't know if I think we do need to discuss each individual event because, for example, like a college golf tournament is not gonna, at some point we have to go based off the economic impact as well, you know, and each market is going to have a different economic impact just based off of like, you know, like he was saying, each of our expertise. Like I know just from the business I'm in that like a youth sports event is going to drive way more economic impact than an adult softball clinic where they're all seniors just going and buying a cup of coffee and spending $10 in the morning at restaurants. Like we need to visit each event individually because on paper, yeah, softball magazine might have the same amount of room nights as a different event, but as far as economic impact, I can tell you from personal experience, it's not even going to be close. So I think we do need to visit each one individually.
Okay, so there is a motion and a second on the table.
Can you clarify? That was the motion to approve the manner in which grants are awarded, correct?
Correct.
Not in terms of debating or reviewing all of them individually.
Correct. So the
Okay.
motion was just, are we going to use the based on score grant or just what they requested? That's the motion and the second. So we can either vote on that or we can remove the second, move first, and we start over.
Christie, what I think we'll do is maybe just I'll remove my motion. We'll go through all the individual ones. And then at the conclusion, we'll decide, we'll vote again as to what our preferred method of voting is. Maybe that might be the best.
So I think you need to remove your second. Correct?
Chelsea Parker to remove the second.
And you removed your first. Okay, so we came up with nothing. Let's start over. I'm glad we let 10 minutes of my life I can't get back now. All right, so let's start with the Columbia Classic.
Okay, Columbia Classic average received a overall 79 score. They asked for $5,000 and 79% of 5,000 would be $3,950 award. Should I go one by one or?
Yeah, if we're gonna vote on each individual, we'll just finish one
Okay,
and then go to the next. So any discussion on Columbia Classic?
I'm fine with them getting the $5,000.
So is that a motion?
Any discussion? Motion to approve the $5,000. Chelsea Parker.
Is there-
Second, then Mims.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
One nay. Jake, did you vote?
I'm good for it.
So 5-1, motion carried.
How about if I just, instead of unmuting my mic, I'll count it as a yes unless I speak up and disagree. Is that okay?
I don't think
Oh.
so. We can't do it that way. I wish we could.
All right, I'll chime in every time then. Sorry.
okay, men's Senior Baseball League Holiday Classic received a 77 score. They requested $15,000 worth of aid. Based on the score, they are to receive $11,550.
So Jake, what do you know about this one since you're kind of on the inside of this as far as the economic impact?
So these guys are actually going to be okay. I mean, because you're talking, they're going to have between 40 and 45 teams. These are like middle-aged guys, you know, maybe like, you know, 40s and 50s who, if they're taking the time off work and they're coming down here to play in a men's baseball tournament, like these guys probably have money. You know what I mean? These are the guys you want here around town. They're going to be spending money in the area, you know, but they're going to travel light. They're not, you know, some of them might bring their families and stuff, but you know, for the most part, like this is just the guys that are coming are pretty much the guys that are coming. They're not bringing many spectators with them.
And in my professional opinion, when the adults come to play, they're more inclined to get Airbnbs than stay at the hotels. Just
I would agree with that.
so.
Still bet tax money.
Just not my money, and I'm right there. So,
A whole nother conversation, but. So they're asking for $15,000. If we did it based on score, which we haven't decided how we want to do that, it'd be 11,550. 3 times as much as the Columbia Classic is the value there. Thoughts? It falls into the, the category, the lodging room nights. It's 500 to 1,000, so the right smack dab in the middle, but they're asking for the max of the funding level.
That's in part why I was in favor of the Columbia Classic. It was a new event, which generated a high score for me, and also it was relatively low cost of funds required to support one room night, which is why I thought that would be a good event for us. Conversely, you have the other end of the spectrum where, they're asking the top of the scale, and, they're asking for 3 times the amount as Columbia Classic, but are only going to produce about twice as much room nights. So with that said, it hit 70%. I scored it at 73. So
The 11,550 based on score actually kind of falls more in the
Yeah.
middle of the rubric for this number of room nights that they're saying. Just thoughts on that?
are we saying that that we're going to pick which number suits us best for each individual one? Is
We
that what
can do
we're
it
gonna
however we
just?
want to do it, since we chose not to, because we left it open. We
Right.
didn't- That motion was taken off the table, so yes.
Okay.
I would be in favor of like basically what it scores out as is like the 11,500 or whatever that number is. Like, I think that's what we should stick with. I don't think we should give them the full amount.
Do you want to make a motion, Jake?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to give them the amount it scores out at.
Which is
Red Poppy
11,500.
second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Number 3, Space Coast Showdown Robotics.
Space Coast Showdown Robotics scored a 73. They requested $6,000 based on the score. It was calculated at $4,380.
Who's got thoughts on this one? It was a short event. It's a 1-day event. So my thought process on it was there wouldn't be a whole lot of room nights. That it would be not a lot of economic impact to us. But it's exciting, some new athletic event, something different.
Yeah.
Diversifying is not a bad thing, because, the future is, who knows what it's gonna look like, so. But it was my lowest score.
yeah, it was my lowest score as well. I had him at 69.
Wasn't mine. I'm very excited. It was in my opinion, I think it framed what the Space Coast is about. And I think we'd be lucky to have more of it. And maybe, hopefully they do very well and we start seeing, multiple night events from it. And maybe the funding can push that a little bit. But in my opinion, we need more of that. Okay. It's one of my highest scores.
So they're asking for 6,000, which is right in the middle of the rubric. And if we did it based on score, it'd be 4,380. Their first time event, they've never asked for money. So. anybody wanna
Which
make a
also
motion?
gives them a larger score on the scoring rubric.
Correct.
On the Columbia Classic, we approved it, but did we approve whether the grant amount to be rewarded what was requested or the score? We did that for the second one. I
We
don't,
did the amount requested for Columbia. We
Columbia.
approved the 5,000.
okay, and then
And the
the,
second one, we
the score.
approved the 11,550.
okay.
For the robotics, I think they should get what's requested.
With the motion?
I don't think anyone agrees, so y'all want to
It
discuss?
doesn't matter, you can still make a motion. Fight your battle.
Chelsea Barker for the robotics applicant to get the amount requested.
Is there a second? No second, so motion does not.
I'll second the motion. I'll second the motion. I think they'll come in, even though it's a 1-day event. I mean, if they have to set up the robotics and stuff, I think you might be seeing these people come in a couple days early to get set up for the event. You might even see these are youth, kids, families, like who knows, some of these people might make a vacation out of it as well.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Nay. Aye. I mean, Jake. Well, he has a second.
I seconded it.
So that was a 3-3. Doesn't pass.
Does not pass. Close.
It's very close.
So do I need a new motion on the table for this one?
Yeah.
Can I have a new motion on the table for this one?
Should we do a motion to do the grant based on the $15 per room? That's what I would be in favor of. It's a first event, see how it goes. If it's a fantastic success and they reapply next year, we'll learn by experience.
They'll get even less than they requested and even less off the score. So I would not agree.
Anybody else?
I mean,
You know, if we did the 4380 based on the score and the room nights don't come through, they don't get it anyway.
Right.
So I don't have a problem. I wouldn't have a problem voting for the grant based on the score myself.
if you want to put a motion for
Yep.
the 3750, I would second it.
Motion to award the grant based on $15 per room, 3,750.
I second the motion.
Further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 I'm counting 5-1.
Okay, so 3750 to the showdown. Next is Red Bull Foam Wreckers.
Red Bull Foam Wreckers scored a 78. They requested $5,000. Grant award based on score be 3,900. Grant award based on $15 per room would be 3,000.
1-day event. Again. What's the event again? What do they do?
It's foam, surfing, the surfing kind of event,
Okay,
foam bird surfing.
okay.
So Ed Set Coconuts. I mean, typically Red Bull would be good marketing if you're looking at the way you're looking at them, Chelsea. But it's a 1-day event. 200 room nights.
To me, this follows the same as the one we just did. I mean, it's almost parallel. So I would make a motion to the $15 per room night.
Second that.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right. None opposed, motion carries. Next, Gateway to the Space Race.
They received a 78 score. They've asked for $7,500. Grant award based on score be $5,850. Grant award based on $15 per room would be $3,375.
Another 1-day event. This was one of the ones I questioned, the out of county. I think people don't stay over for this one, but you know, that would come out in their numbers probably in the end.
one of the things they talked about in the background information, they speculated that they didn't see participant levels because it was during spring break, the 10th of March. They're moving the event up a week. Is that going to make an appreciable difference in the? So I didn't see the logic in that. I mean, that one was borderline for me. I scored it a 70. The other aspect of it that I didn't like is that they're asking for the top of the list, 7,500 of the rubric, and they're reducing 225. So it's one of the more costly events. So I have reservations about that on those two perspectives.
Because it's a one night event, I'm okay doing it 15 per room, $15 per room. Sure. Chelsea Parker to make a motion for the $15 per room for the Red Bull foam wreckers.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Wait, not Jake. Unanimous, motion carries 3375 to Gateways to Space Race. All right, next up, Florida Marathon Weekend.
Florida Marathon Weekend scored an 86. They're requesting $20,000 of support. Grant award based on score would be 17,200. Grant award based on $15 per room would be 18,000.
And you have strong history for them on how many roommates they've actually,
Yes, I do. Mitch does a really good job in supplying room nights, verifiable lists, good information.
2-day event.
I would be inclined to do the amount requested for this one. I mean, it's a proven operator and it's a weekend event and we know it's going to be successful.
I'm just gonna be a contrarian voice on this one. This one and Beach and Boards Fest, both of them, and I know they're Mitch Barnes, and I did score them both highly. Just one of this couple of things that just stood out. For example, if you look at the budget for Beach and Boards, he says he's running the event at a loss of 70,000. If you look at Florida Marathon Weekend, the anticipated losses of 20,000. An event that has been in existence for 16 years and you're anticipating a loss. I don't understand that, or 70,000. And, Mitch has been doing this for a good 20 to 30 years. I wish he was here so I can ask him, how do you run events year in and year out at a loss? It makes me question the funding on that. I mean, that sort
Or
of,
the numbers.
or the numbers. So how do you do that? How do you stay in business running losses of hundreds of thousands of dollars year in and year out? Apparently.
And my note was that the revenues weren't detailed. A
Yeah.
lot of them had just expense budget, but no revenue. I just want to know, how are they getting their revenue? I mean, I'm sure people are paying to go, obviously, but
And then this is also a philosophical question again, is when we read the guidelines, it says to assist the county in attracting and growing high quality sporting events in order to generate significant economic impact. These events generate economic activity, but the language here seems to indicate that such funding is to secure events that would otherwise not be viable or achievable without our assistance. An event that has been in existence for 16 to 20 years, does it still need our support and funding?
on a positive note.
Yes.
I agree. I mean, I'm not disagreeing. but
Yeah,
On a
I-
positive note, they're actually one of the few that have hotels,
They do.
blocks at hotels.
Yep.
Like the real deal, not just, I don't know where they're staying. This is what I think is gonna happen. So
Yeah.
I feel like there is more teeth to that.
Yeah. And as I said, I did give him high scores because of the consistent track record, but some of these questions, I don't, I wish he were here to be able to say, how do you do that? How do you run a loss? Do this.
Well, I think clearly he's not, otherwise he wouldn't be doing it. And I think he's trying, as all salespeople do, they want to secure some additional funding by saying, I'm not making any money.
I know, but
Okay.
then that makes me less inclined to give him funds.
Oh.
That-
Okay, but then if we're going to start basing some of our criteria and our
Yeah.
decisions, you could go back and say, well,
But-
there may be many others that are doing
Yeah,
that too.
I rather him and some of them did, they put in revenue gain. I have no problem if they're making money. So, but it just, there's such a variance there that it kind of, are you doing this in order to justify why you need funding
I
to
think
cover the
so.
whole?
I think that's why it's done. And I sat down and I crunched some of the numbers because identified exactly the same thing. Set that alarm bells to me and said, hang on a minute, you're not doing this for nothing. We know that. But he based the numbers on the very worst case scenario based on COVID, I think, and how numbers have dropped of
Participants.
yeah. And then assume that's the worst case scenario, but we know that entry levels are going to be way higher now. That things.
But that was also that, and there was that narrative that his participation in other events were impacted by COVID. And my understanding is that COVID brought people outdoors. So the number of individuals who bought bicycles and were bicycling and exercising, things of that nature, went up during this period of time. At least that was my perception. Maybe that's not.
But I think unorganized rather than formal events. I think I think
Good.
you're right, but I
Yeah.
think that it was more on that kind of level.
Okay, well,
I can speak to in Florida. I mean, like our events during COVID were bigger than what I mean, some of them are now because the rest of the country was shut down. People were traveling here to play and do things, sanctioned events.
And there's, I mean, they're playing baseball. I mean, somewhat remote, but there is closer proximity than people are running marathons or in the water triathlon. So you could probably argue there's a higher likelihood of there would have been spread through a baseball team than there would be individuals traveling. So I don't know. I just, like I said, I scored it highly, higher, one of the highest ones here. Just those things just didn't sit well with me. So.
I agree with you. And I also agree with what Lynn's saying too. I mean, I think the fact that we know this event's going to drive room nights, we know it's going to drive economic impact. So like, that's what we're here trying to do. I think we, still give them the money, but it's a good question. I think it's a question we should ask them as well. I mean, and maybe just tell them like, hey, we don't care if you're making some money. That's not really our job to judge. Our job to judge is, what does it do for the area and the room nights and the impact.
Would you feel happy if we went on the award based on the $15 per room? Or
Well, for the beach and boards, we would.
Right.
I would probably be in favor on both to do a grant award based on score.
I think amount requested, in my opinion, it's the second largest room producing event. And I don't mind rewarding those who are bringing more room nights. And obviously I don't want them, the two largest events on our page, I don't want to deter them to going elsewhere.
Do you think after 16 years of doing this here that $3,000 is going to make a difference? I don't. And that's my point. I feel like this is kind of like seed money. And after 20 years of doing this, that's why. Don't you have sponsorships and network base that's where it doesn't sit well with me.
I
So-
totally understand where you're coming from.
That's why I think whether we give them 17, 20 or 20,000 doesn't really make a heck of a lot of difference. Because he's still going to be at a loss of $50,000. Just saying. Just saying. More than that.
I think there's different people we can send that message to. I don't know if we want to do that to arguably one of our best partners and, event drivers in the county, but that's just my opinion.
well, doing it based on score would that would be our lowest. If you did it based on $15, you're kind of threading the needle in between the two. So if you're trying to not send a message, but be a little bit more consistent with the other events. But I mean, the other events were one-nighters and no history really. This one has history.
Aren't we splitting hairs? Because no matter what we award, it's still going to be determined by the production.
Yes.
So I don't think whether we choose one or the other, it's gonna be what it is.
Okay. So who would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the requested amount.
Is there a second?
Chelsea Parker seconds.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-1. All right, next Beach and Boards Fest.
Beach and Boards Fest scores an 86. They requested $20,000. Grant award based on the score. 17,200. Grant award based on 15. As we noted earlier, it says 30,000, but we're not authorized to go any higher than 20 at this moment.
Right.
My only thing is this event is always during peak season. It's always in March when we don't need the room nights. And I don't know where those 2,000 room nights go. Do you do? I had 6, I think. 6. 6 rooms. Granted, my rates are maybe not in the right spot, but
And Madam Chair, one of the things I'd always question on this is the numbers related, not the room nights per se, because he does get room blocks, and so we get more direct data. But when he talks about attendance, like he said, 50,000 people attended. Well, yeah, there were 50,000 people just on the beach because it was spring break. So it's not, I mean, I would love to believe that he's driving some of that, but the reality is it's in the middle of our busiest season, so. But, as far as the room night goes, I mean, Terry can speak to it because he's providing actual detailed room night performers, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All verifiable data.
from a marketing standpoint, they do a great job marketing. So. Well, because Ron Johns. Anybody want to make a motion on this one? No, it's kind of tied in there with the last one.
Chelsea Parker, make a motion for Beach and Board Fest for the requested amount.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Right, motion carries 5-1. All right, Cocoa Beach Half Marathon.
Cocoa Beach Half Marathon scored an 81. Grant award requested was $18,000. Grant award based on score of 14,580. Grant award based on $15 per room, $17,250.
So another one-day event. What 1150 room nights? Which I'm not, if there's only 600 out-of-state participants and 400 overnight in-state participants, that would be 1,000. If it's a one-day event, 1,000 room nights. I guess it's, if they all.
And I might add too, and do my research with other commissions, typically more times than not, when we're having a running event such as this, very rarely do they they room with one another. If they have their own room and they might bring a spouse or a friend or someone like that, they will not bunk up with another racer.
All right, does anybody want to make a motion on Cocoa Beach Half Marathon?
I like this event in part because it is in October, so it's during a need period. And he's actually got revenues exceeding his cost on this one, so I want to make sure he makes his money on this one, so.
Did you want to make a motion, Jamie?
I do. Motion to approve at the grant amount of 18,000.
Second,
And second motion.
first and a second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, Moon Golf Invitational.
Moon Golf Invitational scored an overall score of 81. They requested $7,000 worth of grant aid. Grant award based on score $5,670. Grant award based on $15 per room, $6,450.
Got thoughts on this one? Kind of similar to the Columbia Classic.
And just to clarify, this is the Louisville one, right?
That is correct.
So kind of to touch base on like what Jamie said about, the other event, like with their budget, like just saying revenues to not add in, like, obviously Moon Golf isn't naming it Moon Golf for free. You know what I mean? And they don't have that as part of their revenues. Like this budget's pretty bad in my opinion, but I think it's a good event.
It's a great event. It's an amazing event
It's 3 nights.
and
which is
it's
great.
super lucrative. So, and
It-
golfers,
It is at the beginning of peak season, but I do agree with golf. There is more disposable income usually.
it is, there's smaller pods of people. Golf teams are not as large as baseball teams.
We're talking
Um,
about college kids. I don't think that, I don't think there's a lot of disposable income there. They travel as a team to play in a sporting event. They're not gonna spend a lot of money in town. I don't see it.
They do. They go to all of the restaurants in the area each night and fill them up. And so all of the businesses in the surrounding area absolutely benefit from them coming.
The one they did before, I don't think reached anywhere near what they projected today.
They
Yeah.
did. I want to say they projected 400 nights and they ended up with 414 actually, with a very detailed room night. Now, names, properties, dates. It's very, very detailed.
I voted this one a little bit lower just because, it does, when we're asking some of the questions about how does this, project us as far as, bringing people into our community, it really doesn't do that. I mean, what you're getting is just the participants. You're not getting a host of other people, whereas with some of these other events we're talking about, we not only have large participation, but there's also the chance of getting other people, spectators and such.
Terry, I just have a question. They've been doing this event for 6 years and fairly consistent attendance. They generally produce anywhere from 350 to 400. What would be the next step for them? I mean, is there a way to grow this event, or is this sort of because of restraints at Duran and what have you? Could this be a bigger event?
No, it's because there's only 18 holes. I mean, there's no way to grow it. It is what it is. They had, I don't recall how many teams they had this year, but it was a good field. Very well attended because I was out there personally. But again, in fact, the Columbia Classic is actually a spinoff from this. So if I met with those people because they know the Louisville staff, and that's how they came down here to apply.
So the benefit here is not essentially growing this particular event, but having more like them, spin-off events
Spin-off,
that are
correct,
inspired. Okay.
correct.
I can see it.
Also, it's like 5 college people per team move into Melbourne, to spend money and buy homes. Because there are 30 teams from all over the United States, and they're coming from all over, and they are all coming and getting a good feel of the area. Just a thought.
Well, I think too, to touch on that, I think also, we got to remember these are college kids, and if they come down here and have a good time here and go to the beach and stuff and say it's awesome, I mean, how many people are they going to tell? And then other college kids come down for spring break and stuff. Something to think about,
Agreed. Thank you, Jake.
Although they may not be the demographic we're going for as much.
As long as they're spending money. I know. I'm kidding.
All right, well, does anybody want to make a motion? I know we're kind of on different sides of this, but they want to make a motion on this one?
Chelsea Parker to make a motion for the Moon Golf Invitational to receive the amount requested.
Is there a second?
I'll second motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay?
Nay.
Motion carries 5-1. 2 to go. Softball magazine spring training.
Softball magazine spring training scored a 79. Their ask was $5,000. Grant award based on score will be $3,950. Grant award based on $15 per room would be $8,250.
Jake, I have a question for you. Is this the one where the gentleman spoke and he didn't exactly have dates? Or was that?
No, that was the MSBL, and we already
that was
graded
that
that
one,
one, and I'm
okay.
I'm confident I would have spoke up if I didn't think he couldn't get the dates. But I think we're gonna be able to work something out with him. But no, this event is basically this guy puts together like a clinic, and they bring seniors down, pretty much teach them how to play slow pitch softball.
Okay. So it's 4 days, which is nice. Any other thoughts on this one?
Do we have good record of, is this their first time?
No, they've been well over 6 years.
Oh, that's right. And they've always produced.
It's in my 1 year here, they have. At
As
least,
far as I
at least a
know, they-
portion, correct, not the total amount. They did receive a part of the reimbursement.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't always get the full award, but they've always produced rooms, yeah.
One good thing about this event is also we're working to move this event during the week, so it's not on a weekend. I know you hotel people, like rooms during the week. So
We hotel people do.
sorry.
Yeah,
I didn't
no,
know.
no, you're right. You're absolutely right. So they are asking, they said they do 550 room nights, which they're asking for less than the rubric. I mean, they're asking for less than they could have.
Mhm.
So that's a positive too. So they want to make a motion on this one?
This is one of those events where like this is an individual registration event. So for him to provide us that data with the name, the zip code, and all that stuff is going to be really easy for him. So maybe this is one of the ones where we do it based off of the per night or the score, whatever you guys are thinking. It's a good event for what it is, but I'm not going to lie to you about what it is. It's a bunch of old guys coming down here during the week and learning how to play softball. So they're not bringing anyone with them.
They have money. Yeah, they got money.
I don't think I'd want to do the 15 per room. I don't think I want to give them more than they're asking for, because I just don't want to do that.
Just one last thing about room nights. If you look at history, league numbers are accurate. It was 996 in 2020, 686 in 2021, pandemic. Last year was 595. They're only asking for 550, which would be a little lower than now. I think they'll get it, and I think motion to provide them with the full amount.
Okay, is there a second?
Second,
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, last one. Magazine Senior Softball Camp.
Softball Magazine Senior Softball Camp scored a 76. They, and to be just the same event organizer, by the way. He asked for $5,000. Based on the score, they would receive $3,800. Grant award based on $15 per room would be $6,750.
I like the November date on this one. And they had good history. And it's 4 days,
What were the dates again?
November 13th to the 16th. I'll entertain a motion if anybody'd like to make one.
Chelsea Parker, motion to give the softball magazine, senior softball camp, the full amount requested.
For a second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye. Aye.
All right.
Motion carries unanimously. All right, done with that. Next up, that's all we're done voting. Next up, Terry.
All right, so it's just a little update on past events. The Space Coast Clash Soccer was held on April 1st through April 3rd. I'm still waiting on their post-event report in order to get more data, but I will supply that to you once that comes in. I can tell you I was there that weekend, again, just driving through just to check on the event, and there was cars and kids and families everywhere. So it's usually a good event when Space Coast United puts something on over there. They do a good job. The that baseball report, Canada spring training, that went well. It produced 726 room nights. I'm still waiting on more data to close out their post-event report. Estimated economic income for that event, based on the numbers that I do have, was $188,400, and that's using the formula on your spreadsheet on page 9. Softball magazine spring training was March 15th through March 18th. That too, I'm waiting on his post-event report. This weekend, we have the Cocoa Beach Triathlon and Duathlon. That's going to be on the 16th. Right in the middle of the air show. The Eastern Surfing Association, now I do apologize, we have this listed on here twice on the number 2 and number 4. That's going to be on April 21st to 23rd, 21st to 23rd. And the Moon Golf Junior Championships will be held at Duran, April 20th through the 23rd as well. And that's the update.
I don't know that we have any public comments. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn? An easy one.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you all. Hour 20, I was trying to make it an hour.